Want to talk about fleeing to Los Angeles. You're going, what? Well, in my experience, there are two types of people who flee to Los Angeles. One, artist is the most talented, artistic, and beautiful of all the nation's youth. They all come here. They come from New York City, they come from Chicago, they come from the plains in Idaho, they come from their small towns, they come from Tampa, Florida, they come from everywhere. I worked with them. Many of them here only for the first 2 weeks of their lives after leaving everything they've known to come here because their small community has told them and upheld them and put them forth as the best. And now they're here with their beauty, their talent, their fame, their wide open eyes, their desire to somehow conquer and achieve everlasting success, as our society has defined it. And it's just so many stories, and they all come here. The other kind of people who come here are the people who are immigrants from basically down south of California. I don't really know anything about these people because they won't speak to me. But I will say that my uncle, who was from a father who came from Mexico, took me under his wing for basically 8 years after my dad died when he shot himself because of this progressively worsening medical condition that the medical community turned their back on him in regards to. So he took me under his wing, and it was because of him that he may have practically been responsible in many ways for saving my life. Which is why I still find myself even more horrified when, I wander around here and I see these people who have a self-evident grudge against me, one that's even worse and less open to dialectic than, say, with the African Americans, who have an actual real reason and have had real statements and contributions to the culture which really talk about that, and that's where I come in. You see, this culture from down south, I love them. I love all human beings. I want the best for everyone because the best for everyone is the best for me and you too. But, and I realize that's an analogical argument, but for the sake of the brevity of time. But it's like if you come from another culture where you basically jumped ship, okay? You said, okay, I can't save this culture. This culture is beyond redemption. I'm fleeing to another land, which is what America's all about, all right? But then you come to this country, but you don't do, it seems like many of the people in there could give a care, and I guess this could be said for many Americans too, about furthering the democracy in our country, or, trying to give back in a way to what was, what made them want to come here in the first place, the prosperity, And in many ways, people, particularly in California, are to blame for that because, particularly with migrant workers, the unwillingness to pay decent wages to people, for a job that needs to be done for the survival of us all. And so in many ways, we're just as much to blame for that. And there probably may not be opportunities for many of these people to really educate themselves. But then you have to put that versus the refusal to learn English, the regular refusal to get service in certain shops, the self-righteous chip on the shoulder for just passing you by on the street when you're living in my country and taking advantage of my country's prosperity. And it's also weird when you look all around you, and because some of them speak, are bilingual, which is great, but you can't get a job anymore because, I'm not bilingual. I've studied Spanish, but I went into the liberal arts. That's where I put my attention. And so now, not that I'd want one, but I couldn't get one. Not around here, not in Los Angeles. You need to speak 2 languages. And that's just sort of the way it is. But what I wonder is, how does California set $45 million aside to help all these poor immigrants who come in, don't learn the language, are already, basically sucking the system's proverbial you-know-what because they're there to work the jobs that no one else will work, and now we're here protecting them. It's like, well, what about the American Indians? Okay, haven't we as a culture wronged them a good deal more? What about the African Americans who got shipped over here as commodities and they've done nothing but since then but contribute to our culture? Like Tupac, in this song, like it goes, they don't give a frick about us. I'm being really white right now for you people, because like, when you live, even in their children's eyes, they don't give a fuck about us. Mhm. Even in their children's eyes. I've always loved that line because it just shows about culpability, you see. He knew. I don't see anything changing, he says. So what I'm trying to say is, like, if we're looking at these other cultures who have been wrong way more and have contributed way more. We couldn't have won World War II without the Navajo code talkers, and we couldn't have, we wouldn't have jazz, we wouldn't have rap, we wouldn't have rock and roll, we wouldn't have anything. We wouldn't have half of our sports heroes. We wouldn't have anything without these African Americans, the black people. They basically created American culture with their bare fucking hands. Okay, we have Mel Torme. Okay, we have some good stuff, but come on. I mean, come on, the Beatles, what are they doing? They're doing something created by the black people. But, what I'm saying is, why aren't we helping them? And why aren't we helping all these artists who come into Los Angeles trying to create the cultural mecca that they apparently aren't good enough to be able to be deemed worthy of creating? Why isn't there a support system for them, huh? Oh, you came here? Well, here's some free lodging, here's some advice from veterans, here's some real talk about what it means, here's some real discussions about this. Instead, they just come here with the stars in their eyes and just have their heads shaved off. And no one's putting aside $50 million for them.